Well, good morning to everyone who's locked into this News Source Facebook page. I want to welcome you on down on this Wednesday midday. It's 11 o'clock, just after 11 here in Guyana. I want to discuss some issues related to visas and other U.S. immigration matters. I know a lot of you have been inboxing us here at News Source with your concerns, especially during the issue with COVID-19. So we've had a lot of folks messaging us with their concerns about the coronavirus, if they're stuck in the US, if it will affect their visas, if they'll be affected, if they have made an application, if they have been granted that immigrant visa, but they have not traveled yet and the time is ticking. So we're going to try to have all of those questions answered this morning. And I have joining me from the U.S. Embassy, the Consular Chief, Karen Wilberhaus, got that right. And we also have joining us the subject matter expert on non-immigrant visas at the U.S. Embassy. Her name is Maxine Fredericks. Good morning, ladies. How are you doing?
Good morning, Gordon. Thank
And
you so
Karen,
much.
I want to start off with you
Sure.
because a lot of folks have been sending in questions, particularly folks who are stuck in the U.S. and you know the airports are closed and they're concerned about the time running out on those visas, the time on the stay that they should have in the U.S. What can you tell them this morning?
Well, Gordon, that's a great question. And I know that we've been fielding a lot of the same questions in our public correspondence boxes. What I would have, the message that I would want to send to your listeners is that first check their visa, because it should be on the page. So, well, let me start off by saying that when an individual travels to the United States, okay, the visa foil gets them to that point of entry. And then U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which is part of the Department of Homeland Security, that is the authority that determines how long that individual can stay. And so on average, USCIS will place a date in that individual's passport that is 6 months, but it's up to the discretion of the officer. So I do encourage all of your listeners to pull out their passports and take a look and see what that admit date is, because it's often 6 months. If the individual is in the United States and it is not yet to that point of expiration, then they're fine. And when they return back to Guyana on the first available flight in the future, should one of our consular officers, ask them about their stay, if they explain that they were caught out during the pandemic, it's a perfectly understandable explanation during this period. Now, if a person has been in the United States and is approaching that 6 month mark, or is exceeding the stay, beyond their admission date, then they will have to contact U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And that website, my colleagues will be able to put in on a link, which we're also sharing this content on the U.S. Embassy website. And I have a number of colleagues who will be putting in the appropriate internet links for your listeners so they can check it out there. It's at uscis.gov. And if the person puts into the search box extension of stay, that individual can complete a form and request an extension of stay with USCIS directly.
Because there might have been some persons who would have gone up, and let's say they went up in December and they were staying for 3 months. And so when the airports closed in December, when the airports closed, sorry, in March, they would have been a couple of months already in. They should, if they're past that period, they should contact the Immigration and Citizen Services for that extension, right?
Correct.
And could you explain that
yes.
process for us? Once they would have submitted that application for an extension of stay, I figure there's a cost attached to it, and they'll have to do some mailing ins.
They will. Maxine, do you have the details about that application process?
Yes, Karen. So what the applicant can do is, as Karen indicated, they can go on uscis.gov and they can click on forms, and the form number for an extension of stay, that is the I-539. So when they click on that, it has all the details relating to the fees that is attached to that application form.
And I know too that there might be some folks who are concerned that whenever the visa runs out, when the visa expires, and they go back into the embassy for a new visa, and they're going through that application, that they might be asked questions with regard to why they might have spent so long in the U.S. They can refer to this period.
They can refer to this period, and I just want to reassure all of your listeners, Gordon, that our consular officers will definitely take into consideration the pandemic as a reason for why someone has a rather lengthy stay when they're coming back in to request a renewal for their visa.
So that's with regards to non-immigrant visa. Let's talk about the immigrant visa now. Those persons who are going permanent to the U.S. Because there might be some folks who were granted that immigrant visa. They went through the entire process. They were granted that visa. But again, because of the pandemic and the measures in Guyana and elsewhere, they're not able to travel. And so that period that they would have been given to travel, they can't make it during that period. What happens with that immigrant visa, that big brown envelope that we know people walk away with?
Exactly. That big brown envelope is iconic of an immigrant, intending immigrant to the United States. Well, that's it's a great question, Gordon. So the immigrant visa is valid for 6 months. And so what I would encourage all of those immigrant visa holders to do is to take a look at the date of their visa, the date that it was issued, and it is valid for 6 months. So they need to travel within a 6-month period. The other important date that they need to look at is the date of expiration for their medical exam, because that's really, those two documents together are what, what would determine whether or not an individual would need to come back into us and have their visa reprinted. If the 6-month period did expire, then we encourage them to contact us at Visa George at state.gov in order to discuss what's involved with reapplying.
Explain to us that process, though, because as I understand it, once that medical report expires, they might have to be, or they will be forced to do a new medical report and go through back that part of the process.
They will. They'll need to recomplete a medical exam. They'll have to get a new police certificate, and then they would have to have their visa reprinted. So because of this, Gordon, and because we know that we have a lot of clientele, because we're a regional immigrant visa processing hub, we, seeing the pandemic coming in March, we did everything we possibly could to, I have a fabulous team of almost 30 Guyanese, in fact, Guyanese, Cuban, and American consular professionals working here in Georgetown, and they work tirelessly to expedite and get every immigrant visa case out that they possibly could before the Department of State ordered the suspension of normal operations. So we recognized that we had a number of immigrant visa holders that could possibly be stranded in Georgetown. We did everything we could to expedite their cases, and we made arrangements so that on the 7 commercial relief flights that we requested special permission from the government of Guyana to operate, that we made sure that space was available for those immigrant visa holders so that they could travel to the United States and successfully emigrate. Unfortunately, there are a few individuals that were caught out for various reasons, and we'll continue to work with them so that we can get them on their way.
And there's also the concern, Karen, about the family members who would have sponsored that application if the visa expires. What is the process? Do they have to resend documents? Those family members overseas who would be the sponsor, as it's referred to, would they have to send you documents if that expires, if that visa expires?
Maxine, what are your thoughts on that? I would say that we have most of the documents already.
It's a great question, Gordon. There may be some updated documents, but this would be on a case-by-case basis. So what happens is that the applicant, should they fall into that category of needing a new visa, um, they will have to register. They will have to probably schedule a new appointment through their registered account. Once they have done that, we will go through the process of reviewing their case, and they will be advised on what documents, in addition to their medical and police clearance, what additional documents they may need.
And Maxine, since we have you, in terms of the embassy itself, we know the embassy closed its doors to those non-immigrant visas, the processing of those non-immigrant visas, but there would have been persons who would have already paid the fee and they already had an appointment date. What is the situation with those persons right now? How can they get a new appointment date set? How can they get their interviews back on track whenever the embassy decides to restart the process?
Great question. So Gordon, those persons, first of all, their fee payment, and that's for the non-immigrant visa, that is valid for 1 year from the time of payment. So what they need to do is to go back, sign into their registered account and select reschedule appointment. They will be able to schedule a new appointment at a later date.
And the same goes for immigrant visas?
The immigrant visa, yes, they will have to sign into their account as well, and they'll be able to select a new appointment date.
Okay, well, we have a lot of folks watching us live on Facebook, and I just want to get a few questions. We have someone asking, in light of the pandemic, persons granted permanent resident status whose travel falls within or expires within the lockdown, what is the situation for them? I think we just covered that. In terms of the medicals, and so I think we just covered that. That person might have just signed in. We're asking, we have someone else asking, what about persons who are waiting for interview date for permanent residency? Can they reassign, get a new date also? How does that work?
Yes, Gordon, they will be able to reschedule their appointment. They may have had an appointment scheduled, but because of our COVID situation, so via their registered account, there again, they go sign in and they will be able to select a new appointment when operations are up and running.
Yeah. I know a lot of folks would go to these internet cafes and persons would assist them in getting some of the stuff signed up. So they might have to return to those persons to assist them clearly.
Yeah.
Yes, they may, or they can have a family member assist them as well.
Okay, we're going to have some more questions coming in. We have Mark Pratap asking, would there be an emergency appointment for a J1 visa as an alien physician for medical residency training?
Yes. Go ahead, Maxine.
Certainly, Gordon. Yes. It's the same process. They go to the registered account, they select an expedited appointment. It requires the applicant to input a reason for the expedited appointment, and we will certainly avail ourselves of that.
And as it is now, there is no clear date as to when the embassy will reopen to those visa applications and to allow persons to come in to be interviewed.
I can take that one, Maxine. So at this point in time, normal visa operations are suspended, and that's a determination that's made by the Bureau of Consular Affairs back in Washington. They're watching very closely, you know, how what the global situation is, and they haven't made the call yet in order for, you know, every post around the world, every embassy around the world to reopen. So we're waiting to hear. In the meantime, we're still working very hard and prioritizing emergency cases. But again, we've kind of diverted our resources towards, you know, the aid and assistance to American citizens at this time. But there are select groups of emergency visas. And, you know, should anyone have a question about their individual case, you know, we encourage them to contact us at visageorge@state.gov, and then we can advise them on whether or not their case is something that we are able to expedite at this time.
Of course, we know, Karen, that Guyana serves as the visa center for Cuba. And so we have someone from Cuba asking whether applicants for K1 are going to be assigned special appointments. Explain to us first of all the K1 visa, because I don't think a lot of folks know about that in Guyana. But explain to us, what is the K1 visa?
Maxine, do you want to talk about K1 visa?
Okay, Gordon. So the K1 visa, that's a fiance visa.
Oh, it's
That's
fiance.
it's a
Yes.
fiance visa. It's just a number.
I was wondering, going to the
Yes,
chapel to
that's
get
a
married.
fiance visa.
So because of the pandemic, you've been away from your sweetheart. So I think they're trying to figure out when the pandemic does not break off the relationship or break off their opportunity to go meet that special someone. So the appointment follows the same process, right?
Yes.
So that one caught me by surprise. That fiance visa. Okay, we're asking, well, a lot of questions coming now are coming from persons who probably missed the opening of the show. But we have someone asking about American citizens in Guyana. If they require special services from the U.S. Embassy at this time, how could they make contact? How could they get that information from the
Well,
embassy?
yes, we would ask Gordon that any U.S. citizen in Guyana, still present in Guyana, that if they haven't done so already, that they register with us. And how you register is on our Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, and the acronym for that is STEP. And you can go to that website at step.state.gov. If you're an American citizen and you register with us, whenever we have new information about outgoing flights, about any type of weather or health alert, we will be able to get that information to you very quickly. And if any U.S. citizen who's still present in Guyana needs assistance, we ask them to contact us at acsgeorge@state.gov so that we can schedule an emergency appointment if needed. If an individual has a passport that's expiring, we encourage them to contact us, and we'll make arrangements to prioritize a passport appointment for them.
We have an interesting question here, Karen.
Sure.
We have one of our listeners asking, if you already have an immigrant visa or you're eligible for an immigrant visa and the process has started, but can be completed due to the pandemic, or you've been granted that immigrant visa, but you can't travel due to the pandemic, what happens if the sponsor might have died?
Well, there are a variety of factors involved with that. We would urge that individual to contact us at visageorge@state.gov so that we can advise them on the specifics. If that individual already has their immigrant visa issued and they haven't traveled, we encourage them to travel. They're ready to go. If it's already been issued, then I would say we want them to go. Yeah.
In case the process was ongoing, it was probably near completion, and that sponsor might have passed away during the past couple of months, they should contact the embassy directly to have the embassy address that.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, definitely. I mean, it's kind of hard because we don't have all of the information, but definitely have them reach out to us at visageorge@state.gov, and we'll give them some advice.
Or Karen, if I may
Sorry.
also add to that, or they can write to the National Visa Center, because it depends at what stage the case is at. So they can also inform the National Visa Center.
Yeah, it's complicated. Yeah, it's complicated when we don't have all the pieces of information.
Okay, so it'll be important for them to write the National Visa Center or the embassy to get that cleared up.
Exactly. Please reach out to us.
And persons are asking about the visa lottery. I know there was some news a few months ago about that. Bring us up to date.
So normally the diversity visa, so just to give you a little bit of background on what the diversity visa program is, it is a statutorily sanctioned program in which the U.S. Puts forth roughly 50, I mean, the numbers vary every year, but this recent year, it's about 55,000 people from around the world are eligible to apply for a diversity visa. And so individuals at this point have already applied for the program, And now that the allocations have been made and the individuals have been chosen, there's an opportunity that starts this Saturday on June 6th for entrance into the visa lottery to check and see what their status is. And so normally that's done in May, but because of some diversion of resources due to the pandemic, the department had to postpone the launch of the website for individuals that can go on and see whether or not that they received one of those 55,000 slots. Once they've been notified that they are a recipient of this diversity visa lottery, then they'll be able to go through the process, much like Maxine has been describing. Maxine, do you have anything else to add on that?
No.
No, okay.
That's it.
Okay. Gordon, we're not hearing you.
We're not hearing you, Gordon. Yes, his mic is, yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
We're talking now about green card holders who might have come to Guyana and they're still in Guyana now. They might have been here for a long time. What is the issue with that? Will they be given a difficult time when they get back into the U.S.?
Well, Maxine, do you want me to take this one or would you?
I can take it.
Okay.
So Gordon, yes, so green card holders, they should not be out of the US for more than 1 year. However, there are some holders with green cards with a 10-year expiration date. They are allowed to travel. Okay, we cannot compel the airlines to board those passengers. However, they can, consult with the airlines and they should be allowed to travel.
So again, if you're a green card holder, you should not be out of the U.S. For more than a year.
More than a year.
Right.
What about if you are a U.S. citizen and you came home to see the children and you came home to spend your little 6 months during the holidays, but you're now stuck here and they're seeing the news of what's happening with coronavirus and they're worried about that, so they don't want to return right now. Is there a limitation for U.S. citizens in Guyana?
No, Gordon, there's no limitation for U.S. citizens. They can stay out indefinitely. In fact, globally, we have over 9 million United States citizens that, live permanently outside of the U.S. So it's not a problem whatsoever. But just to backtrack a bit to the subject of legal permanent residence. Just to add on one more thing to what Maxine was saying is that, yes, it's true. It's the airlines have discretion on who they board. So if an individual has questions about, whether or not they're going to be, allowed to get on the plane, we recommend that when, the airport is up and running, that those individuals show their documents to the airline in advance. And then if the airline says that the documents that they have in their possession don't meet the standard for that particular airline, then we want them to reach out to us at visageorge@state.gov, because there are a couple of situations in which a green card holder, if they've been outside of the US for more than a year or even 6 months, then CIS is going to try and make a determination on whether or not that individual had planned to abandon their residency in the US. And so they're going to ask a lot of questions. And we have a process called, filing a form for a returning resident that, we can work through with the applicant so that it'll facilitate a smooth entry back into the United States. But if in doubt, the individuals, legal permanent residents who have been out of the United States for more than 6 months should definitely contact us at visageorge@state.gov.
And as we get ready to wrap up, we have another listener who's asking about their children. She's explaining that her children are out of Guyana. They have U.S. visas. They're not in the U.S. though. But to get back to Guyana, they would need to transit through the U.S. But as it is now, with the travel restrictions, they're facing the possibility of those visas expiring at the end of June, and they might not be able to transit through the U.S. Would they have to apply for special transit visas where they're stuck right now?
I think where they're struck, yes, where they're stuck, they would have to request an appointment.
But once the visa expires, they cannot enter the US.
Correct.
And I also have another question coming in. And we have some phone calls coming in too. So
Not a
someone
problem.
is asking about the lottery system. We just answered that. So I figured that person can go back and check the live when it's posted. They're asking about green card issues. I think we generally dealt with that. Once
Yes.
they're out of the country, they should not be out for more than 1 year because they could face some difficulties there. And
If I
okay, I have
may
another
add
question.
to the LPRs, Gordon, if they
Please,
wish to
Maxine.
be out of the US for more than a year, there is special consideration. That person can apply to USIS, uscis.gov, for that
Uh-huh.
extended period. They would usually approve a 2-year period. It's in the form of like a little passport, okay, but they must make that application to USIS.
Yeah. And is there any word as yet on the next available flights for persons who may want to be repatriated to the US? We have some folks asking about that.
Yes, and I have some good news on that. This morning, we requested authorization from the National COVID Task Force, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to offer yet another commercial relief flight, and that would be this Saturday. It would be traveling from Georgetown to Miami, and I believe the flight departure is scheduled at 3:30. This is tentative. We haven't received all of the formal approvals yet, but because we're already on Wednesday, we wanted to get the word out. We encourage anyone who is a immigrant visa holder, a legal permanent resident, of course, U.S. citizens, and visa holders who are interested in taking this flight to reach out to Eastern Airlines, who I believe will be operating this flight.
Okay, as we get ready to wrap up, Karen and Maxine, we're
Sure.
just going to go right back to the top. Brief us again on persons who might have pending applications for both non-immigrant and immigrant visas, but the date expired for that application, for that interview, during the shutdown. How can they get a new date? Remind us of that. And remind us too for those permanent residents who might have to get a new medical.
Okay. Maxine, do you want to talk about the expedite channel?
Sure. So, Gordon, those persons can sign into their registered account. That's at usvisa-info, and they can request an expedited appointment, or they can reschedule their appointment.
So
Both for the
either of those
non-immigrant
things.
and the immigrant visa applicants. They need to go into their registered account and select the appropriate new appointments that they are requiring.
Okay. And in closing, any other information you might want to share with us as we get ready to wrap up?
Sure. I just wanted to say that we have a wealth of information on our website, on the the U.S. Embassy website, under U.S. Citizen Services and under Visa Services. We've attempted to cross-post all the information that we push out in those spots, as well as on our Facebook and other social media venues. And if anyone has any questions that aren't answered on those multiple platforms, we're happy to take questions at visageorge@state.gov for visa questions, and for Americans, we'll take your questions or requests for appointments on acsgeorge@state.gov.
And of course, they can head across to the U.S. Embassy's Facebook page. There's always a lot of information up there, and they'll be answering many of the questions on the live. And when the live is completed, they'll be answering questions for persons who might have specific questions. But again, you can also send emails, or you can inbox them, and they can deal with some of those issues on the Facebook page or via the email address. But thanks a lot, Karen, and thanks a lot, Maxine, for spending this time with us.
Thank
and
you
hopefully
too.
our listeners would have gotten all their questions answered, and they're now better able to address whatever situations. I've got lots of questions coming in about the fiance visa.
Oh, that's the K1. That's the
Appears,
K1.
appears as though a lot of folks will be missing the wedding in June. But thanks a lot, guys, for having
Thank you
this
so
chat.
much.
Have a
Thank you so
great
much,
day.
Gordon. Okay.
Okay,
Take care.
thank you.
Thanks to all those folks who tuned in for the broadcast, and we do hope that you're going to enjoy the rest of your day. Remember to share the live and get information out. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You too, Gordon.
Thanks a lot.